to Psychonaut Sessions. This is your host, Daniel Moeller. As we get closer and closer to Halloween, you know me, I am a huge Halloween buff. I'm pulling out a lot of these old horror comics and stuff and checking out anything even remotely scary. And I came across this in one of my long boxes the other day. Um, yeah, again, I'm sorry I've been going a little bit more mainstream lately. It's not very often that I will cover a Marvel comic, but this was kind of an oddity, Darkhold, and I actually kind of enjoyed it back in the day. So this is 92, something like that. Yep, 92. I was right. Darkhold number one was part of the Rise of the Midnight Sun storyline that happened over the course of multiple titles during this time. Ghost Rider was huge. Ghost Rider was gigantic in the early 90s. Had a big resurgence, new title, and there was a storyline. This storyline, Rise of the Midnight Suns, where it took place across several titles, but most of those titles, with the exception of Ghost Rider, were brand new titles. They introduced Night Stalkers, Morbius, etc. Darkhold was one of those, and this is part 4 of that. So, did you need to read all of those in order to understand? I mean, a little bit, but not like too much. You could still pick this up. And I always thought this was kind of an interesting cover. And it just stood out to me because all the other books still just seemed more superhero-ish, but just like dark, scary vampire superheroes, whatever. This seemed completely different. And so it intrigued me. And I liked the kind of collage nature of the cover where everything just kind of seemed pieced together, but like pulled together in a way that it was like almost abstract. Like you got all these different circles and lines connecting everything. There's this like triangle sort of encasing the image, and then plus this guy just, oh, who the fuck is that? So anyway, it was interesting to me then, and when I picked it back up, it was interesting to me even recently. So part 4, so like the first part started out in Ghost Rider. The next was Spirits of Vengeance, which was a team up between Ghost Rider and what's it, Johnny Blaze, the original Ghost Rider, I believe. So it's like their team up book. Then Morbius, the living vampire. Don't know anything about the movie, but this is when Morbius was cool. Never saw the movie. Night Stalkers, which was a team up between Blade. Gosh, I can't even remember. Blade and a couple other people. Like another vampire and someone else. And then ended in Ghost Rider. So the whole concept of Rise of Midnight Suns is Lilith, the queen of evil. She's a mother of demons. She's rising to take over the world, I guess. Pretty much. Pretty generic. But this whole storyline is Ghost Rider and Johnny Blaze traveling to different areas. I guess Ghost Rider had all these visions of all these different characters in Darkhold, Morbius, Night Stalkers, etc. that Lilith was going to try to exploit. So they have to go and travel to those people, thus starting the first issue of their series to stop Lilith's machinations. So I didn't really know what to expect. Some of the art in the Rise of the Midnight Suns was a little iffy in some of the other titles. But this one I didn't have any memory of it, and I opened it up and I was like, huh, not bad. Kind of like a Tony Harris vibe from the Starman DC series, written by James Robinson, which I think the art style is really fun It's this kind of like deco sort of style. So I think that's what this person was going for. I don't know where those series line up timeline wise. I don't remember when Starman, but it just has that kind of vibe. Really love the checkered floor. This is very got a lot of like David Lynchian vibes. So I'm all in. And there's this like black envelope. So there's this like little guy who just keeps showing up everywhere and giving people black envelopes, and disappearing. Um, but I love this how the art is, pretty solid all the way through. But then every once in a while they'll just go in with some good ink splatters or something like that to just give it this like raw, raw edge. But pretty messed up. So this rich guy gets an envelope, and then next thing we know, he goes home. His wife is trying to kill him because he's just an asshole, like cheating on her and stuff. And he just grabs the gun from her and shoots himself. And then all of these like worms come out and they jump in her mouth and kill her. And so it's like, whoa, what the hell is going on here? So then we get to this girl, Vicky Montesi. So she's in Rome. She's hanging out with a friend who's eating spaghetti, which looks a lot like those worms. It's like one of those like film transitions, like in a movie when there's some like guts or something, and then somebody's like cutting into steak or whatever. So they're hanging out and talking, and they have a little confrontation with like Vicky's supervisor. She's a nurse, and he's a total dick, and even puts hands on her. And I guess Vicky's friend takes him out because she has martial arts training, of course. And I guess that she's even taught Vicky some. And they run away to go home, and they're roommates. And she puts her key in the lock, and boom, huge explosion. So we get a really cool, fun sequence here of getting knocked out by the explosion, and we got some visioning going on of the worm dude and all this like crazy stuff. I, I have no complaints about the art. I wish they could have maybe done a better coloring job. I think they could have done something with the coloring so it wasn't so just poppy and bright, to make it a little bit more menacing. It would be interesting to see what a colorist nowadays would do, because this just like bright blue, some of these bright colors just don't really lend to the horror element. But I think the artist himself is doing a fine job, and now I'm feeling silly. Richard Case with Mark McKenna. So it's written by Christian Cooper. Man, I didn't give anybody, and I'm not trying to knock Glennis Oliver. It's a fine job coloring. I think just the maybe color palette could have been different. But Richard Case and Mark McKenna, doing the artwork chops. So she wakes up in the hospital, and then her father is there with some dude from Interpol. So her father works for the church, and he's part of like the Montesi clan, who supposedly have this legacy of trying to protect humanity from the Darkhold, which is the most evil book ever written by some kind of, not even demon, but some sort of elder god filled with spells and just horrible things, and it's a bane to humanity's existence. And so he has been training her to take on that legacy, but she's always been just kind of like, fuck you, nope, don't want a part of it, and it's silly. But then she has a vision coming through again, and is like, okay, there might be something to all this. So he assigns a guy from Interpol to watch after her, because somebody's obviously trying to take them out. Hence the explosion and everything. He thinks somebody's trying to take out the Montesi clan, because the Darkhold is, surfacing again. Again, so we've got these really solid kind of Art Deco, line styles, and then some of the sketchiness, ink-wise in the background. I really like the mix between the two. There are elements where it really works well. It all flows really well. Back in New York, we have this lady, Professor Louise Hastings. It gets encountered by Johnny Blaze and Ghost Rider. Some really interesting, just random people that seem to be in the background that look like they could be prominent to the image, but they're really not. It's just random people, um, which is kind of fun. It kind of adds to this like weird element of like there are people around watching. But anyway, this professor is like a professor of like archaeology, ancient archaeology, and the occult, that whole sort of thing. Ghost Rider appears and said, "I had visions of you and Vicky Montesi. Lilith is rising, and so we need to figure out what the heck is going on here." Not a bad image of Ghost Rider, I guess. I really like this image of the skull. I like the ink work there. Really cool. And so, flashback, there's this freaking ninja that's coming in and kills a nurse, just butchers this poor nurse to get to Vicky, and Vicky's gone. She has a teddy bear there. It's a whole Lord of the Rings kind of the ghouls stabbing, an empty bed sort of thing. And Vicky took off, but she's getting attacked by more ninjas, which are part of the Darkhold clan that worship the Darkhold. And the guy from Interpol comes in to help her. So they were fighting at first. She didn't want him around, but he's following her to make sure she's safe. So they're connected there, and fighting off more ninjas. And she, of course, remember, learned martial arts from her buddy. Action is like really good. It's a lot of fun. It doesn't ever really feel that stilted. It's just basic too. It's not anything to write home about of like crazy amazing. Again, the backgrounds are a little plain, and sometimes that's perfectly fine, and other times it would have been nice to see the artists kind of fill that out a little bit more, just to get a little bit more like gothic sense, because this originally takes place in Rome and then in New York. To just get a feel, I just don't understand like why this even originally took place in Rome and then shifts to New York. But here we get Lilith watching all this. She had this like little henchman lady who had these like weird bug eyes, and that was like her seer, so she could see what was going on everywhere. And these guys are these weird dudes that apparently are they're dark holders, and I don't know if they're demons, but they say something about a mask, like my mask presides. So maybe these are masks that these guys are wearing, but I mean that looks like a demon hand, so I don't know. What they're cool. They're absolutely cool. Lilith, I always thought was kind of like a little hokey with that long elongated head thing, but and just wearing like rocker garb, but it was the 90s. What are you gonna do? But this guy looks pretty neat. It doesn't really explain what they are too much, so but these are their ninjas, and she's going to use one of her demon guys to beef them up, make them like demonic ninjas, and he does that by just shredding them. So I guess he zombifies them or whatever. Kind of fun. Now, see, this background's done really well. I think he was going for like a Mignola vibe. I mean, you really get that sense in this. The ink work that of McKenna's is really nice and solid here. But this is just done really well. You get enough detail along with just that pure black shadow that it just works. So they're sneaking into somewhere. I think it's the house, I believe, of the original guy that got the envelope, and she just knows for some reason because she has these visions. So the Interpol guy is going along with her. They encounter Professor Hastings, and apparently they knew each other. And she said, so yeah, these envelopes contain pages of the Darkhold. and now somebody's like passing them out. So, and each page is, one page itself could destroy humanity, because of the dark things contained within. So they need to stop it. So the Interpol guy's doing some investigating, and we get a little drip of a worm, and we get our worm dude coming down to attack them. Really cool image. Um, yeah, a lot of fun. He's got like an eyeball coming out and everything. Love it. Absolutely love it. Really gross too, because the worms are getting into him and into his mouth, and he's like having to puke them out. It's just like ugh. But of course, Johnny Blaze and Ghost Rider just break in. They just bust in wherever they go. Ghost Rider's got a chain that hurts bad evil things, and Johnny Blaze has a hellfire shotgun. It's so bad. Um, but they try to take him out, and they at least, somewhat, at least knock him away. But he just turns into worms and is like trying to go down the sink. But the Interpol guy manages to grab a handful, and she's like, "Don't squish them yet. Let's put them in a jar." So they have him in a jar, and his consciousness is still alive in them. And I thought this was a really cool image. Kind of trapped. Gives a little bit more history of the Darkhold that I've already kind of explained. Really love that. So there are times these artists work really well, because they really do come up with some creepy vibes. And just kind of explains how there was this stuff on the parchment that he couldn't read because it was written in some ancient language, but he was still able to speak it. He was still able to read it even though he didn't know the language. And as he did, it was a spell which brought all this on, killed his wife, ra-ta-ta-ta-ta. And so they kind of concoct this plan because they know the Darkholders are watching them, where she kind of, Professor Hastings lures them in. And then I don't know what's happening. I guess all the worms are attacking Vicky again out of nowhere. There was really no build up for that. And then they're running away. And he gets hit by a bus. Really cool. Really cool image. A lot of fun. But then we're back to Professor Hastings. Like, where were you luring the Darkholders to? Another thing is, again, with the coloring, it's like I couldn't tell if this was day or night. Just based upon, it's just, the coloring probably could have helped us figure out what was going on a little bit more, I guess, because I was losing space and time. Anyway, they're like in some like Central Park or something at this point. The Darkholders are chasing them. Lilith shows up for some reason to just watch, and because you got to have an encounter with Lilith every issue, I guess. So a big fight ensues. Not a lot going on. I mean, they take out the Darkholders, which are now zombified. So they're taking them out. The freaking worm guy is taking over Vicky, but then birds just randomly come and eat away all the worms, I guess. And I guess there was another guy. This was kind of confusing to me. Where did this other guy come from? He said something about we'll have 2 times the fun. Like where did this? So it was really, this was that part was actually really confusing. Is this page? It's like she's like luring the Darkholders back to the house. But then suddenly Vicky is we just find her alone in bed and she's being attacked. And then she's just running away, and like, where are they? Like, why is she running away by herself down the street all of a sudden? It looks like they're on the dude. I mean, and this is Ghost Rider. He could just, there's no way Vicky and this guy is running faster than Ghost Rider. He's like super powered. I don't know. It was just all very confusing. He was trying to help the Interpol guy, help Vicky, but Professor Hastings literally drew a gun on him and was like, "No, I need you to wait." And he's like, "What?" And what she knew for some reason that birds were gonna come and eat all the worms away, and that's how they defeated them. Kind of lame, but cool image. Really cool image. It would have been cooler if they did some kind of spell or something to lure all the birds in. Like she just like knew birds would come and eat all the worms, and was just waiting, and even held a gun to this guy's head. It was just like, what? So Lilith is like, I'm gonna leave, and teleports back to hell, but she somehow forgets her little eye gal, the lady with the eyes, and so she gets left behind. So I guess that will continue later. And the Darkhold crew decide, well, the Interpol guy, Vicky, and Professor Hastings decide that we are going to travel and stop the Darkhold from coming in. So their story continues past the rise of the Midnight Suns. And of course, there's some scary guy watching them. He squishes one of the final worms. And then we get another snippet of the envelope dude getting ready to pass an envelope to a guy who looks like he's making a bomb to blow up the Library of Congress. So that's interesting. A little wonky in places, but overall I do like the story, and I like the art. I like the concept a lot. So I'm going to continue. I have like a few other issues. I'm going to continue, see what it's like. Probably not going to continue looking through Rise of the Midnight Sun stuff. That story with Lilith was actually quite boring. It was just one of those marketing ploys to have a crossover event as well as introduce new titles, which happened all the time in the 90s, and most of the titles didn't survive, including Darkhold. Darkhold only lasted a small while, so it really wasn't that popular. But anyway, thought it was fun, interesting, as we're getting closer to Halloween, a few more horror stuff. I might cover another issue on this channel before Halloween, we'll see. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, thanks a ton. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Blah, blah, blah. Buy my stuff. Da, 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 da. Really appreciate y'all. Love ya. Keep it psycho out there.